you go.
Okay, how you doing, sir?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Great. Having a great day so far. Happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way.
Thanks very much. You're wearing green. I see that.
Yeah, yeah, green's
Good. I'm
my
not gonna
favorite
have to
color.
pinch you.
Yeah.
When we were young, it was always like, oh yeah, if you don't wear green, we're gonna pinch you.
Yeah. So,
So you're in the kitchen, huh, buddy?
oh yeah, you could say that's kind of my dining room slash kitchen because kind of like sort of sharing the full space in a sense, you know.
Yeah. Where do you live, buddy?
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Wow, huh? That's
Yeah, it's on
cool.
the other side of the country.
I've been to, is it Jim's? I was there like last summer. I went to the cheesesteak place. Oh,
Oh, yeah, they good cheesesteak, great, very mindful
it's
cheesesteaks, as you
great.
already know.
Love that stuff. Okay, so ask away, man. We only got about 40 minutes, so let's
Sure,
go,
sure.
go.
First, I want to start off fresh with how did you guys found the passion to perform as an actor, writer, and director?
Well, it came to me very, very young, Stephen.
Okay.
Both my parents were actors. My dad was actually in vaudeville back in the day, and they met at the Goodman Art Institute, which was in Chicago. And they were both, my mother was there on an acting scholarship, and my dad was there on a scholarship as well. And they met and they got together. And so when you put together a vaudevillian and an actress, you get someone like me, total ham.
Yeah.
Oh,
Funny enough,
everybody-
I'm originally from Chicago,
Are you really? Where in Chicago?
mostly around the South Side neighborhood.
Yeah. Like,
Mhm.
like what? Like that's where they were from. They're from Rockwell Street.
Yeah, I moved a lot growing up. So I moved from like the north side, the west side, the south
Uh-huh.
side. Yeah, sometimes I even lived in Evanston for a little bit, and yeah, so we moved a lot in Chicago.
Well, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a cousin who has a real nice place in Lincoln Park.
That's a
And
nice.
boy,
Yeah.
that's a fun place. I really love Chicago, but I couldn't take those winters, man. They're just brutal. And especially the last
Very,
4 or 5 years, seems they've been extra brutal.
very.
So anyway, so
very.
that's how I started. I started when I got into school early because my mom, we were overseas and she was able to push me into school. I was barely 4 years old and when I was in kindergarten. So I remember the performance anxiety. I was going to have to be Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. And I was going to have to jump over a candlestick. And I was so nervous about jumping over that candlestick. So I have performance memories going back to 4 years old, for gosh sakes. Isn't that crazy? And then when I was in school my dad was in the service. So when I was in school up in Michigan, I lived in upstate Michigan. My teacher in second grade overheard me imitating the principal with one of the students. And she said, excuse me, Michael, I want to talk to you after class. And I'm like, oh crap, I am in deep duty. And it turned out she goes, you're imitating the principal and you're doing it pretty well. So how would you feel if I arranged for you to be on the school intercom for the morning announcements and you could do the principal for the whole school? And I was like, what? No, you're kidding. You're really kidding. And she goes, no, really. I'm like, oh.
Very awesome. That's very.
I was just like, I was at a loss
laugh.
for words. One of the few times in my life you'll find out, Stephen, that I've ever at a loss for words. Unfortunately, in this life, I seem to think I'm getting paid by the word because you can't stop me from talking. I'm probably the loudest guy you've ever met. I mean, you can hear me. You probably could hear me without the Zoom on this call. So anyway, so they put me on there, and this is way back in the early '60s. So Walter Cronkite was still like the big newsreader that everybody knew. So I came on there. I thought, well, first I'll give him a little my Walter Cronkite. So I said, this is Walter Concrete here with the news here at Kincheloe Elementary. And, I went into it, and then I did the principal, and then I came back to class, and everybody was kind of like, you're 10 minutes late. Where you been? And I said, well, that was me on the intercom. They're like, no way. Really? And, it's like, it's a funny thing about when you have positive experiences. It's kind of like chocolate cake.
Yeah.
After a while, you start to like it. And that was my experience on my first real voiceover experience. And throughout high school, I was in drama and got my degree at San Diego State in drama, and then I became an announcer at SeaWorld. And then I became an announcer up at Universal Studios. And then actually I went from that to announcing, and I was a roller skating MC for Chippendales for a few years. So I went from look at that dolphin to look at that beefcake. That was pretty much it. So that's kind of my background.
Yeah. So all your acting experience, how did that transition you to move to LA?
Well, I'd been down in San Diego where I got my degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, eventually I'll get up there to LA because I wanted to do stand-up. And somehow that never really happened. I did do some stand-up, but I had a hard time, and I just wasn't, you have to have a lot of guts to do stand-up. You have to have a lot of drive. And I guess I didn't have that. I was right there, and I saw a lot of people that I started out with became huge stars in stand-up and in, movies and television. So a girl broke my heart, and that's why I moved up here. I was like, she had been living with me, and then she came back from Europe. I was supposed to go on the trip with her, but I had to stay and do the announcing job at SeaWorld. When she came back, she'd met someone on the trip, and so we broke up, and I was devastated. So they started showing up everywhere where I would go. This guy, he shows up about a week later, and they're going like, I go to my favorite Mexican restaurant, there they are eating Mexican. I go to my gym, there they are working out. I'm like, dude, I cannot take this. So that's why I said, okay, that's it. I'm getting out of here. I'm done.
Yeah.
And so then I moved up to Los Angeles, and I had a friend who I met, just shows you, you never know what connections are going to help you in life. So you should always just try to be as nice as you can to everyone. I had a dear friend at college who was Hispanic, and she had gotten up here and she started dubbing movies and television shows from English into Spanish. That was a huge market at the time. It's grown even more, as you know, right now.
Yeah.
So she said, hey, I remember you did all those funny voices. And I did a lot of accents and stuff, whenever they had a character, in any of these plays where they need someone with an accent, they'd throw it my way because I could do
a great job at that. I got to tell you, after your 35 plus years in the business, you do a very, very good job, by the way.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, but that's where you honed your craft. That's where you learned. People say, "Oh, I want to be a voice actor," and then you say, "Well, what have you done? Have you taken any voice class? No. Have you done any theater? No. I want to be a voice actor." Well, there's a lot of years of learning, the craft before you got to learn to walk before you run. Everybody wants to run. And anyway, so I got up there, and she said, well, you and your goofy voices, they're having auditions at the studio that I work at they want to dub this Spanish thing into English. You should come down and audition. And I went down and auditioned, and one thing led to another. I got that job. I got another job and another job. And pretty soon I was pretty much in the mix. I was about in the mid 80s. And then I was still trying to do my stand-up thing. I was with the Comedy Store Players for a while. I was performing with Robin Williams, Jan Hooks, a lot of people that went on to be very, very famous. Robin was already a big star.
Yeah, he was already a big name at that time too. Like
he was. He had done Mork, and he hadn't started doing all his great movies. I think he maybe had one under his belt at that time. Mm-hmm. But so anyway, so I went out on the road. I got fired from Chippendales, and then the guy was famous for doing this. He'd owe somebody a couple, he'd owe you $2,000 or $3,000, and he'd let it kind of ride, and then he'd say you're fired. And then you'd say, well, what about paying me the rest of my money? And you'd have to chase him in court. He wanted to go to court because he knew that most people wouldn't do that. So then they called me back and they said, hey, listen, do you want to go out on the road with the guys? We're doing like a North American tour. They'd really like to have you as the MC. And I was like, yeah. Is he going to pay me? And they said, no, he's not going to pay you. So then they told me what the number was, and I added a little bit more to it. And they said, okay, definitely you're in. So I did that for about a year and a half. Then I came back, and then I started writing game shows. That was pretty cool. And then game shows died. It literally, they died. Like it was like 1980, let's see, that'd be 87, 88. And all of a sudden, game shows, there were so many of them. And I thought, wow, I'm going to write game shows the rest of my life. And I would do the audience warm up. And, it was just, I just loved it. And then they all just died. They died. And if you check it, you can see there were no game shows for literally about 10 years. I think the first one back was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which was much, much later.
Yeah.
So then I just, kept doing, there was this little company that was on Ventura Boulevard in these little bungalows. They probably had about 8 or 10 offices, little tiny offices in this place. And the name of the guy that ran it was a guy named Chaim Saban.
Harmony Gold?
Chaim Saban, Saban Entertainment, man.
Okay,
Saban,
so yeah.
I think
Okay.
Saban was even bigger than Harmony Gold.
Okay.
So Chaim started there, and I got opportunities to voice stuff. And then as the company grew, just like any good company, any good person that runs a company, gave you more and more responsibility, more and more chances to do stuff. And so I became one of their, directors, and I directed the Power Rangers. I was one of the night shift directors along with Wendy Lee. We would split that. And then I became the night shift director on Masked Rider and a Big
VR
Bad
Trooper.
Beetleborgs, all of those Saban shows.
Yeah.
And then I did an on-camera show for them called the Mad Scientist Toon Club.
Mhm.
They needed to fulfill a educational requirement. If you're making a lot of cartoons, you also have to do, the United States, the government says that you have to also do some educational stuff. You can't just do wacky stuff.
Yes.
So I did that show. I had my own show there. Didn't really do great. It was just, but boy, it was, I think, I'm going to say we had 14 hours of programming. It was pretty much me doing science experiments wrapped around cartoons.
Yeah.
And then after that one, then I did was on camera on VR Troopers as Woody Stalker.
Yep.
And then I started doing other stuff on camera. I was still trying to do the stand-up. I was still trying to do audience warm-up, but those kind of fell the wayside because I started doing a lot more directing and, not just voicing, but also directing and writing the scripts for a lot of different things. I was the original director of Bleach.
Yeah.
The first 21 episodes. And then I went from there on to directing. I directed some other Saban shows as well.
Yeah.
And then, directing movies and just keep trying to work. That's what it was all about.
Yeah, because I know I stay in like social like engagement with Jeff Nimoy. He told me that you've been booking like directing jobs like this and there and that to the point where you were one of the original backup directors for Digimon the first season.
Yeah, he keeps saying I was a backup director. I was not a backup director.
Okay.
It was, and he has that misconception. He wasn't there before us. It was once again, it was Wendy Lee and I were splitting. It's just like we split the directing on Power Rangers. Yeah, Jeff keeps saying I was a backup director. I was not a backup director. It was me and Wendy Lee splitting it right down the middle. So yeah, so that was before he got there. He was there with he and Bob came in and took over, and we went on to other projects. And in retrospect, I would have liked to have stayed with Digimon, but that's I wasn't offered that, so I just kept going with other stuff.
Yeah. And speaking of Digimon, I want to talk about your extensive work on Digimon. You do a fantastic job on what you do with the Digimon series as an actor, director, and a writer too on occasions.
Yeah, they've had a lot of directors after me. They had let's see, it was Jeff and Bob, and then
Mary.
I think the next one was Mary, right? Mary directed a lot of the later stuff.
Yep.
And then actually, sometimes when she got too busy, they'd have me back there directing it as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. During the season 3 and season 4.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was crazy. Yeah, she got too busy with Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And then they brought me back in to handle some of the Digimon after Bob and Jeff had moved on to other projects. They got moved on to other stuff as well eventually.
Yeah, in the process of your Digimon role, because I know the first time I heard you on Digimon was Andromon and then Electmon.
Right.
Me as a kid, I couldn't put 2 and 2 together because I know it's similar. It sounds similar to you, but there were 2 distinct characters, and I love how you give each their distinctive characterization for both characters, even though they sound.
I was also, I don't think I ever got credit for it, but I was actually the original Metal Greymon. And then my buddy Joe Pilato took it over.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's a little known fact. And then Joe Pilato
Yeah, Joe
was
Pilato, I know.
Joe Pilato has passed away since then. He's a
Yeah,
very good friend of
yeah.
mine, and he was in the original George Romero movie as the guy who's being chased in Day of the Dead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was his big claim to fame. And then he also was good friends. You know, speaking of Philadelphia, he was good friends with come on, Quentin Tarantino. And so Quentin Tarantino said, "Hey, Joe," he throws him a script. He goes, "I want you to read this. I want you to be this guy." And it was a really great role. And then Joe's like, "Oh my God, this is gonna be so huge. I've got this huge role in this new movie. It's called Pulp Fiction." I go, "That's great." Because he was a good actor, really good actor. And then at the last minute, Quentin Tarantino said, "Joe, you're not gonna play that role. I'm gonna play it." So when you watch Pulp Fiction, the role that Quentin Tarantino gave himself, remember the guy, they come over to his house and he's in his bathrobe? He was gonna give that to Joe. But he felt so bad. He said, "Joe, I got to throw you a bone. I feel bad. This is terrible." So if you look, when Uma Thurman and Johnny Travolta go to that look-alike restaurant,
Yeah.
Joe Pilato is in there. He's doing, I think he's doing Dean Martin. He's doing like a Martin and Lewis thing.
Yeah.
And he's Dean Martin, and this other guy is Jerry Lewis. You know, and you see him peripherally in the thing, but it was a nice payday for him because the residuals on that were apparently incredible.
Wow.
And then poor Joe got prostate cancer, and he passed away. Just I think the last 2 or 3 years. Really sad. Really fun guy. We did a lot of work together, on camera, off camera. We worked on a show called Hold Everything, which was an on-camera show that was a hidden camera show that was also a game show.
Yeah.
So the idea was we get people in these situations, and it was hidden camera, and then they'd freeze it. They say, "Hold everything. Is this person going to do it, or are they not going to do it? You know, are they going to go with the guy? Or are they not going to go with the guy? Are they going to eat the cake, or are they not going to eat the cake?" You know, all stuff like that. And if you ever get a chance to get a hold of, I don't know where those exist. They were done by Dan Enright, who was a very famous game show maven. And those are really fun to watch. Some of those are pretty wild.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff you're asking people to do is just beyond really. They would really do that. Well, so let's get back to the voices. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. This is a good story because I was about to speak more about Joseph Pilato. Jeff, remember directing Joe on his Metal Greymon sessions. He told me like he's usually one of the last actors to record because every time he performed that voice, his voice gets shot out. And
oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing that people don't realize. You know, a lot of the work we do, you know, you hear you go, "Oh well, gosh, that sounds great." But sometimes, you know, being able to reach those places is not so easy.
Yeah.
I think my biggest example of losing my voice was I did group on Gladiator, the movie Gladiator. And I was in the group doing that. And I was one of the few Americans, because the film was directed by Tony Scott, who's an Englishman.
Yeah.
And he decided that he only wanted English, you know, native UK people, you know, people from the, you know, from Great Britain to be on the dubbing on that. And the group leader, Newell Alexander of the Mad Dogs, kind of snuck me in because he knew that I'd be able to, you know, hold up the accent if I needed to be. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. We were on that for 6 days. And every day you were dying, you know, 15, 20, 30 times. And by the end of I think we went Wednesday, Thursday. No, I guess we went Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then he was asking me, you know, Newell would come over in the session. "Okay, so we're on for tomorrow. You're in, right?" Yeah. And I was like, "No, I don't have any voice left." He's like, "It's okay. It's okay, Mike. You just show up. You kind of carried us. You know, you've done a lot of good work up till now. If you do 4 or 5 cues tomorrow, that would be okay." So he was such a sweet man. He still is. Newell Alexander, his lovely wife, Rosemary, really great people. And Mitch, who is also the group leader. But Newell kind of ran things, and I lost my voice for a full week after that. I yelled so much and so consistently. I lost my voice for a very long time.
Yeah, because
but it was worth it when you saw it. It was just a great movie. Unfortunately, they kind of dialed down our performances and dialed up Hans Zimmer's music, but it was really a wonderful experience working with great people on a great movie. So it was, you know, I always had a lot of pride about being in that movie, in a sense. vocally.
I like how you share these stories about meeting these new people, actors, director, producers, and having like a very, very good and professional relationship with you, because it tells you a story about how long you've been in the business, and what it needed to survive in this business, because it's not a regular
Well,
day job.
if I was going to give advice to anyone, there's three little pieces of advice that I used to give, that I give when I do a lot of, I do a guest direct on a certain person's class, and I always tell them the one big one is, someday is not a day of the week. Because people talk about, well, someday I'm going to do this, and someday I'm going to do that, and someday I'm going to pull together my tape, or someday I'm going to get a real microphone, or someday, well, someday doesn't come. Someday doesn't come. You have to be really, and that's why I didn't become a stand-up. I just didn't have the follow through, the drive to do it. You got to really be driven to do anything in this business, because people are going to say no to you at every turn. And especially now with there being such a large talent pool, boy, it's really hard to break through, much harder to break through than it was in my day, I believe. I mean, you can have a lot of talent and still break through, but you got to be diligent. It really is show business, and the emphasis is on the business. And a lot of people don't see that. They just want, I just want to be on an anime. I don't want to hear my voice. And yeah, well, you're gonna have to work pretty hard nowadays.
Very,
a lot of people out there that will have that same dream. So what's going to separate you from them? It's going to be your determination, your tenacity, your persistence. So if I could give anyone out there listening to this a message, I would say that's what it takes, man. You got to be really diligent about it. And the other big thing is, you know what? It's a life lesson. It's not even a show business lesson, which is just treat people the way you want to be treated.
Respect.
And I like to be treated really nice. So I do things like, I'll show up at a session and I'll bring everyone a home cooked meal. Because I know when you're there all week, you've been there 5 days and you're working on a project, you get tired of eating pizza or whatever the hell it is that you're getting, during lunch. It's nice if somebody brings you in a home cooked meal, because, oh man, that makes you feel good and helps you get through it, because, a lot of times our budgets are such that, you really have to kind of push, they want it fast, they want it cheap, and they want it good. Well, 2 of the 3 are usually easy to find. It's hard to find all 3, but we try to give them all 3. So it's tough in that way as well. But you just have to be prepared, take care of yourself, nutritionally, especially if you're a voice actor, you better be hydrating like crazy, because those vocal folds have to be hydrated. And look at it, there you go, drinking your water. See, that's good. I'm already thinking positive waste.
I drink a lot of water on a daily basis.
That's good, buddy. That's important. Really important for vocal. Because in the old days we go, oh yeah, I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna grab a cup of coffee before we work. And now I never do that, but I will have that cup of coffee when we finish. But, you can't, you can hear it. I remember one of the first big jobs I did, well, not one of the first ones, but it was one of many. I did a narration of a native English speaker. It was a show for National Geographic about the body. It was called, what was it called? It was part of the Infinite Voyage series. Anyway, I followed the narrator of the show was James Coburn, very famous old actor. He was in a thing called In Like Flynn. That was some movies he did, and I think he was even in the Dirty Dozen. He was a very famous actor, and he did a lot of voiceover stuff. I went into the booth after him, and it was a booth about it was a professional booth in a professional place. It was about 6 by 8, and he'd smoked a cigar in there. I mean, a full cigar. He'd be there for a couple hours. That booth smelled like a smokehouse. So I had to go in there and do my thing. And I remember I had some coffee beforehand, and they had this beautiful U87, that Neumann, the classic, the benchmark mic. Yeah. And so they're turning me up, to make it sound big. And as soon as I open my mouth, I'm hearing. I'm like, oh, man. What the hell is that sound? They said, oh, that's your mouth. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I was like drinking water to get that, so you don't get the smackies, so to speak. And it came off beautifully. And it was a lot of fun because it was me doing an English accent. It was really fun. It was like me doing the call of Roger Bannister when he broke the first guy to break the 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
So it was really a fun gig, but boy, it makes you think,
Yeah.
it's important. You got to be ready to go. You got to get your rest, got to get that hydration. Can't drink coffee before.
And you
Those
do
are all good rules.
a splendid job of keeping your vocal cords on a health check. Like you do it good because your range never ceased to amaze me, especially on your work back to Digimon, because I know your first major role in Digimon took place like a couple of years after the first earlier season. It was Nemon. I'm still shocked that you performed the voice of Nemon, because that's a high voice. And
that was a fun voice. That reminds me, when I first started Saban, actually another guy that we just lost that I want to honor and mention is Scott Page Pactor.
Yeah.
Scott was one of those guys there who was, it's just exactly what I talked about. Here was someone that gave everyone a chance. He gave people a chance that weren't even in voiceover. No, Clive Mizumoto, who also passed away from cancer, God rest his soul, but he had a bartender that he thought had an interesting voice, and Scott said, well, bring him in. And we used the guy for a while, and he, you needed to direct him pretty hard, but Scott would give everyone chances. He gave everyone chance. And he was the one that originally put, Wendy and I on directing Power Rangers and allowing me to direct other things on those shows, a lot of the ADR.
Yeah.
So he was a super, super guy. And the point was, though, we both went back to, we were some of the first people there working for Saban. And he was at that time, he was an engineer. He hadn't become a producer or a sound supervisor yet, or post-production producer. And one of the first projects we did was this thing called Ollie's Oxtails.
Yeah.
And it was a guy named Jeff Winkless, who was a wonderful actor, who's also passed. Great actor. And his story is an interesting story. His dad was in advertising. And he and his dad actually came up with Snap, Crackle, Pop for Rice Krispies. And he was also a voice on the Banana Splits, which was an old show that I used to watch. I think it was actually Bingo. Yes, next on Danger Island. But so anyway, so on that one, he was playing the voice of an ox, and I was playing the voice of this little turtle. His name was Jack Turtleson. And so, because he was a turtle, I gave him a voice up in there. So that's where I first found my name on Voice Ollie. It was so much fun. We had such a blast with that show. It was really a winner. I haven't heard it probably in 30 years, but that was a good time.
Yeah, and I should also say this fact about Digimon. You, R. Martin Klein, Kirk Thornton, and Richard Epcar are one of the few actors to have a voice role in every single Digimon season that aired on television network.
Well, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Well, Richard's always had that big voice, and Kurt's ultimately super talented. He's doing a lot of directing, and great actor, great voice actor, and a wonderful friend. Both of them are great friends of mine. They're good people.
Yeah. And speaking about with R. Martin Klein, I know you directed him in this short show called Flint the Time Detective with him and another Bob Pepperbrook. I know.
Yeah. So there's stories about that. It was funny. Is Bob, whenever he would get ready to do a voice, he would set the voice by saying a phrase. Okay. So that was great. And he does a great job. He brings all the energy in the world. Bob is so much fun to work with. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to have lunch with him tomorrow to let him know how much I appreciate him. Anyway, so he would say this, he would say, right, to get the voice set for, you get a voice perfectly set. So we did that series, and then I liked his work so much, I cast him in another show when we did Cyborg 009.
Yes, you did.
So I cast him as the baby in that. I think I want to say that's 003 or 1. Which one is the baby?
Ooh.
I forget.
The baby is R. Martin Klein. Yeah.
And I played Great Britain in it. I played the actor guy.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so this is back in the days when they were just starting to have computers being able to record as opposed to recording to tape. Yeah. And so he'd go, right. And they go into whatever we were doing, and they're like, hey, I think we're going to be just fine if we just go there. Right. No, we can't do that. So that's him like doing a couple of cues, right? Yeah. So we had a session where it all dumped. The computer completely crashed. And so this guy had to come in that weekend. He had to rebuild all the episodes, right? And he said, I got everybody in sync except for this one guy. And it was R. Martin Klein, because he kept syncing to the right instead of. So I said, no, that's just how he would set up his voice. He goes, oh, no wonder they weren't in sync. That was a funny little story.
Yeah,
that's how hard we work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to, as you know, I'm a big fan of Digimon. I want to go back to it a little bit. One thing caught me completely off guard was this happened a couple of years ago, around like either 2016 or 2017. The director was definitely from Studiopolis. His name is Ryan Johnston. He brought you in for a session for Elecmon, Zudomon, and then he digivolved into Vikamon.
Right.
Can you explain the process of developing the Vikamon? I know you was going for a Viking type voice.
Right.
So how did they get in contact with you guys? I know you've been a freelancer for Studiopolis for a while too, because of Bleach, Naruto, and other projects.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, well, they always know where I am, and I was also writing. I was still doing a lot of writing for them. I would adapt scripts for them as well. So I felt like I was always in the mix for a while there, except for Bleach. Bleach went away and never came back, and I was sorry about that because I really enjoyed that. And we helped to set all the good characters on that. And who knew there was going to go 300 episodes? But I would have liked to. I've never quit a project. That's something that you should probably know. I have never quit a project. People have chosen to get other directors, or that they've done stuff like that. Just recently, that happened with Jujutsu Kaisen. I directed the first 12 episodes. Crunchyroll was very happy with my work. We won, we won the award that year for, I believe, the best new anime on their site.
Congrats.
And then when it came time to do the Jeff wrote the movie. Yeah. And it's actually premiering today. I know a lot of people are going to premieres today.
Yeah, he just
on the big screen.
Yeah, he just posted that. He shared it on his social media account.
Yeah, and anyway, and I didn't get a chance to direct the movie, and I don't know what happened with that, because I would have certainly liked to. But a lot of times it's budgetary things. It absolutely is. They have a budget, and if sometimes they will combine the engineer and director into one person to save money, and that makes sense, and I totally understand. But it's like how it is when you have a baby and you've seen that baby grow up to be like a little, you've seen it be a toddler, and you've seen it like go to grade school. You want to see that kid through high school too. So I don't know if that analogy makes sense, but I've had a lot of projects like that where they're my baby, or they're not. I know they're not mine, but you know what I mean. It's like when you develop something and you develop a relationship with that cast, and maybe even you got to cast some people. Like I got to cast Matt as the panda in that, and now he goes on and does the movie, and I don't even get nothing in it. I was like, dang it, I would have liked to been a part of it. Even that's the whole thing is, I don't care if I'm a big part or a little part.
Yeah.
I just want to be a part of it. You know what I mean? That's always the way.
You had fun. Yeah, sorry to cut you off, but you definitely had fun voicing Zudomon and Bikemon with the little chance you got with it, because I know
originally, I think if you check this, originally Dave Mallow did the voice of Bikemon.
Did he?
He did for about, I want to say, one season maybe. And then he was unavailable. They said, can you cover it? And absolutely, I could cover it.
Wow.
So that's something to think of. Dave and I used to work together. He was Babu and I was Squad on Power.
Right. Mm-hmm. And
we would always work together. And what's funny is, of course, I'd always want to get scheduled ahead of him, because all our scenes were together. And so the first guy in would make sure that his sound was the last sound you heard in each scene. It was like a competition, kind of, you know what I mean? A friendly competition, but it would go to the end of the scene. And I always make sure to be the last, woo! As I wouldn't want Dave to get in there, because then he'd do it, and then they say, oh no, we're using his. No, you have to go a little shorter than him.
Yeah.
Damn it, So that was a lot of fun. He was fun to work
with. Speaking of the voice you used for Squad, you did a similar voice for another Digimon character called Doggymon, and I think it was paying a homage to this character from a Hanna-Barbera cartoon called. He was like a sidekick to Dastardly Dad from.
Oh yeah, Dick Dastardly. Yeah, it was kind of my. Yeah. Oh, I love the Muttley character, and that Muttley character was actually based the laugh is based on a previous character called Precious Pup. That was the original. That laugh was Precious Pup originally. There's a little old lady, and she had a like a little old granny, and she had a pup named Precious Pup, and he would do things like that. And then when they did Dick Dastardly and the Wacky Races, and they brought him back Muttley, I want to say it was Don Messick. He was like one of my idols. And I found that a lot of the stuff that he could do vocally, I could do vocally as well. Although he could do a little tinier voices than I could do. But he was one of my heroes. I never got to meet him. So a lot of people I always wanted to meet, and I didn't. I was lucky enough. Here's another good a good lesson for those people out there, which is always be not on time, be a little early. Because you never know what that opens up. It opens up a lot of possibilities. You kind of get a feel for how things are going. You know, you get the vibe of the room in a sense, Stephen. Yeah. And you also sometimes get rare chances. Like I showed up, I was working on a movie called Curious George.
Oh.
I had a very small part on that as the scene at Cabby. It was basically 2 scenes. It was about an hour-long session. You know, it was nice though. It was a nice little piece, and it has a big payoff at the end. So you got to laugh in the movie, which is always fun. Yeah. So I got there about 15 minutes early. It was over at LA Studios, which is on, I guess I'm in Cahuenga. Yeah, it's on Cahuenga. And so I got there early, and they said, "Oh yeah, they're up in the studio. If you want to go up there, it's okay." Yeah. So I go up there. You know, nowadays I don't think you get to go up anymore. You know, now they want to keep everybody separate, and you know, of course, with the pandemic, everyone's got to be, you know, sprayed and spaded and whatever, you know, covered. Yeah. Anyway, so I went up there, and I get up to the control room, and they're like, "No, come on in, it's okay." So I'm coming there, and I'm looking in there, and who's in the booth but Dick Van Dyke? And to me, he's like one of my legends. I mean, I grew up with him and Mary Poppins and the Dick Van Dyke Show, and just he's such a great comedian, you know, both physically and so.
My grandparents love him.
Oh my God, yeah. And so he gets done, and they go, "Okay, Dick, we're done. You can come out." and as he starts to come out, I said, "Should I go in?" "Oh yeah, go ahead, go in. We'll get ready for you. We'll get you set in a couple of minutes." So I started to go in, and in passing, I started talking to him. And he was such a gentleman and so kind. And we were both walkers, and he was wearing walking shoes, and I knew they were walking shoes. "Hey, you know, though, you wear those walkers. Do you do a lot of walking?" He goes, "Yeah." "Do you do a lot of walking?" I go, "Yeah, actually, I walk marathons." And so and they literally had to push him out of the booth. They said, "Okay, Mr. Van Dyke, yeah, we need to stay on sketch. Could you please go, sir?" And it was so cool, man, because, you know, it's just like, wow. And that also happened when I worked on Scooby-Doo Monsters Unleashed. Yeah. I got there early. I got to meet Peter Boyle that way. And then my second session, I got to see Will Ferrell, but I didn't get to talk to him on Curious George.
Oh, that's
cool. Because he was scheduled to the minute. You know, it's like, you can have him for another minute. That's it. I mean, literally, you have 1 more minute with him, and then we have to go. Yeah. And then he was like, whoosh, he was gone right away. You know, he was on to the next. You know, he's very, very popular. Yeah. And a wonderful comedian as well.
Yeah, you definitely have a great stint of doing these monster voices. I was watching one of the recent Digimon movies. You did a character called Masindra. You just sound like a complete monster. Like, all that. Did it really hurt your chords when you do that performance?
You know, you learn to develop a placement so that you don't hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you're younger, you tend to think, "Oh man, I'm going to give it everything I got." Well, the problem with that is, if you give it everything you've got and you got to work for 3 hours, you might last, you might not. And that's not a good thing. You know, they can't after 2 hours say, "Well, gosh, we can't use it." But you have to learn to be an advocate for yourself, because, you know, I can't tell you how many times people say, "Okay, we got 2 hours of stuff to do." Okay. And then the first cue is like an ungodly roar. And you're like, in the old days, I just, "Okay, suck it up, go." And now I always say, "Do I have dialogue?" Yeah, you have a lot of dialogue. You have this soft, tender scene that comes up in about a half hour. I said, "Well, you know what? If I yell really hard, it's going to affect my ability to deliver that soft, tender stuff at the end, because I will wreck my voice." So I said, "Let's go do that first, and we'll come back and do as many of those roars as you want at the end." But, you know, You have to advocate for yourself, because a lot of times people are not thinking ahead as to, they don't think of the voice as a finite resource, and it is. No matter how good you are, you can only do it so hard for so long.
Yeah. Okay. Another final time I want to bring up too, because I just recently saw this a couple of days ago, that this doesn't normally happen when you're dubbing anime. I know years back, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn was the director. You, Dave Wittenberg, Kate Higgins, Miley Flanagan, and I think Brian Donovan, y'all did a group session recording your character's line for a Naruto movie. Now, how unique and special and fun that was for you?
I don't remember doing that. I really don't remember working with. I would remember being in the room with all those people. I don't think I've ever actually been in the room with Miley when she's recording. I know her. I respect her work so much. She's such a great actress, whatever you want to say. But no, I don't think. And I used to direct, Brian on Digimon.
Yeah.
And I remember when he first came along, it was really cool. And the first thing he did, he had a big national campaign for Shakey's Pizza. And I said, hey, tell us about the Shakey's again, Brian.
Yeah. You also directed him on Flint the Time Detective too.
Right. Oh yeah, he had a big part. He did. He and Heidi Christoon, she was great. And we also had a guy who doesn't want to talk about it, but we also had Joe Achman.
Yeah.
And we also had myself as come on, what's the name of the guy? Tanaka. I was the man who's yelling like this around because I do great British voices. It's like a Monty Python ripoff in a sense. Yeah. But that was a very, very fun show. And Joe as Prince Accentro, even though he may not ever claim it, he did a fantastic job. He was so good as that role.
Yep, and Barbara Goodson did a good job with Petrofina too.
Barbara's like my sister to me. She really is.
Yeah.
We have a friendship that goes way beyond what we do for a living. She has just always been super sweet. She's a genuine person. She's kind to everyone. She's always looking out for everyone as well. She's a tremendous actress. She's tremendous, like both on screen and in voiceover. I mean, just so cool.
Yeah, because I know
I'm blessed to work with a lot of people I've worked with. I feel very, very fortunate. And now, as I start to enter the evening of my career, I really appreciate, being able to direct great talent, because, it's just, they make your job so easy, and it's fun, with really great talent. All you do is you sit back and you get to enjoy it. You don't have to push them. You don't have to pull them. They just kind of do it. They've already got it. And so it's really cool.
Because you as a person, you made a great impact for these new and upcoming actors like Casey Mongelos. They called you Uncle Sorich every time you direct them.
That's true. Yeah, well, Casey's great. Casey's a lot of fun. I love when Casey does a grandma. It's so hilarious. And he figured. Yeah, and of course Kira as well. She's wonderful. She has a lot of wonderful voices. We get to hang out once in a while. It's really nice. We go to Kira's coffee shop. She has her own little coffee shop. She doesn't own it, but she should. Yeah. And she should be getting residuals. They should give her $1 for every cup of coffee that place sells, because everybody goes there because she goes there. Yeah. And she's created like her own drink there. She has like a call drink there. It's like a Mexican mocha with a bunch of stuff in it. But they're great people. Like I said.
Oh, one thing.
And you know what? Here's a little story about Kira that no one knows, or maybe they do by now, because I think I've told it 10 or 12 times. I was there for Kira's first recording ever. We were doing a show called Battle Beat 'em On.
Oh my goodness!
She was 15 years old, and she had come to Hollywood to see it with her parents. And James Mastriani, another great producer, great guy that I've worked with. He worked on Digimon and a lot of shows. Mm-hmm. He was the producer, and she had sent him a letter and said, "Would it be okay if I came by and watched?" Nowadays you can't do that anymore. It's so sad that all these non-disclosure and stuff eliminate people from having access. So he said, sure, come by. So she came by, and we sat the three of them on a couch behind Eddie. Come on, Eddie. Yeah. Eddie was the engineer. I believe the talent was, I want to say it might have been Dave Wittenberg, maybe not. Maybe
Paul St. Peter.
It might have been, it might have been Paul St. Peter, Dave Wittenberg. Or it might have been, I know it wasn't Yuri. Yuri was in that show, but it wasn't Yuri. or it may have been Barbara.
Okay,
Any-
I was going
or
to say
it might have been
Brian.
Mona. But so anyway,
Brian.
whoever was in there, they
Yeah.
got done. And so they were, oh my God, you know, she's just sitting there just thrilled to death, right? And I said, okay, you're up. She's like, what? I said, get in the booth. Get in the booth right now. We're going to get you in. She's like, what? Oh my gosh. And so she got in there and, you know, we did a couple of little short lines with her. And, you know, her parents were, oh, they're on cloud 9. So that was it, you know, it was just really great. And then she went back to Alaska and she kept working at it and she studied her Japanese and, you know, and she came back and she is a major influence now. So it was really nice to see, you know, the little sprout of ingenuity and all that talent and to see it grow into a beautiful tree.
Yeah,
You know?
Kara's an amazing actress. She definitely got the passion to perform indefinitely. And I'm,
You know, Steven, I'm gonna have to run, buddy. I hate to cut it short, but
no,
I
you're
got a
fine.
1 o'clock, buddy. So
You're fine.
I need to get a little water before we start and all that. But I thank you so much. Do me a favor and send me a copy of this when you get it all edited up or whatever you're gonna do with it.
Yeah.
And I'll look forward to you know, being in touch again. Okay, buddy?
Sure. Thank you so much for your time, Michael Sorich.
Thank
I
you.
pray that you have a great day and you have a safe and daring journey. Thank you, Michael
You got it,
Sorich.
buddy.
Take care.
Thanks again for your time, and I appreciate you being a fan. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care now.
Bye. I see you later.
All right. Take care.